Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and welcome to the Transporter Room. Today, we have a very special guest join us, Vernon Smith. Vernon is a comic and children's books artist and one hell of a Star Trek fan. Thank you for making the time to come on the show today. How's your day been?
It's awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Um, I wanted to say it was a pleasure getting to meet you in the Trek to Dallas convention back in November,
Same here.
and I'm glad we've been able to stay connected. And we met. We had our friend Jen. We met, and I was talking to her, and she said, "Have you talked to Vernon yet?" I was like, I need to call him or message him." Hunting down on the
Right.
internet, I found him, and so this is awesome. And so as I was saying at one point when I was doing my research for tonight, you are the first comic book artist I have ever had the pleasure to meet. And as I was getting ready, honestly, I didn't know how many types of comic books genres there were. I mean, I'd watched The Big Bang Theory, and they were always looking through, Marvel, DC, all that stuff. They did talk. There was some was it Archie in there, I think, and Jughead. But so I was looking. I found that there are at least 28 different genres of comic books, and that really shocked me. I just did not know that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Probably about 100 issues that come out each week, and from like dozens of publishers about all sorts of different subjects. I mean, everything from big two stuff, Marvel, DC, to other publishers like IDW, Image Boom, Dark Horse, and then there's like all the indie self-published creator-owned stuff that could be anything from coherent stories to just off-the-wall adventures of a toaster falling in love with a hot dog or something. Like you just never know what you're gonna get.
Oh wow, that's a lot, and but I could see it. You're right, especially when you start getting into like the indie stuff, and people just and they just write what they want to write and what they love. And if they want to talk about a toaster and a hot dog, then so be it. That's their
Yeah,
thing.
yep.
Hey,
It's
it's
like
not.
they're their own boss, so they
Yeah.
can do. And I've done like stuff like that too. I mean, not that specific story, but yeah, I've done like my own indie self-published comics and stuff, and it's cool because it's like no one can tell you no when you're the one writing, drawing, publishing it, printing it. You, it's like, all right, if I'm doing all this work, I can do whatever I want with the story.
So, what got you started in the comic book business?
Um, I've been drawing them ever since I was a kid, like really for as long as I can remember. I've still got like the first comic I ever made in first grade, and then elementary school. A couple of friends of mine and I, like, we would do comics together, and they don't really do it anymore. Like, one's a lawyer, one's a minister, but I was like, yeah, I don't really feel like growing up, so I'm gonna stick with this, and did it throughout junior high, high school, college, and into adulthood. And yeah, I've mostly done like I said, indie comics where I can do my own stuff or work with someone that, who writes it and then I draw it. And then more recently, been doing stuff with IDW and have gotten to work on like two of my favorite, or probably my two favorite properties, which is Ninja Turtles and Star Trek.
Yeah, I saw that. I was watching something earlier, and that I didn't realize you were a big Ninja Turtle fan,
Oh
along
yeah,
with a Star Trek fan. And
yeah,
and I do. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I watched the Ninja when the Ninja in the '90s Ninja Turtles. Yeah, '90s. Trying to remember. Yeah, late '80s, early '90s, probably Ninja Turtles cartoon, and it was. I mean, I loved the cartoon.
right,
I thought it
yeah,
was phenomenal. You
yeah.
know, not so much the I don't know, I don't like the newer animation or something, but then the movie, I did like the movie, the actual when they did the live action movie. I thought that was great. That was so good. And but yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched anything Turtles in a really long time.
Yeah, one of I think My favorite of the cartoons was, I think it was like 2011 when it was on Nicktoons. Those were like my absolute favorite. Like I really like, the 80s one. Um, but like it just the I'm pretty sure it was like 2011 when it came out. That's like my favorite of all of them. But like I'd gotten into like the comics when I was like first getting into comics in like middle school, and I found some of the original Eastman and Laird Ninja Turtles comics, and I read those because it's like I knew the cartoon and stuff, and then that kind of got me into doing like my own indie comics years later when I grew up, because those just started out as like the two creators just writing and drawing them in their kitchen.
Really?
uh, yeah, like that's why like the original publishing was called like Mirage Publishing, because they were like, yeah, it's just a mirage. It's not like a real business. It's just us in our apartment making these comics.
Okay, I would have not imagined that, but again,
And then just blew up,
yeah, I mean, and that's kind but that also goes for what we're doing here, the podcast and whatnot. You have a channel that you have one good interview or a good promo with someone, and
Or
huh?
I said, that's what I'm here for. I'm
Absolutely. And that's what's so cool about doing this. I mean, that's why I like it. But so I know you did Ninja Turtles. What about when did you start drawing or doing Star Trek comics?
the personally, I've been doing them since like eighth grade. I remember like I used to draw my own comics, and it wasn't even like the traditional crew. Like it was like I loved the design of the Excelsior from Star Trek 3, and I came up with like my own characters. There was like an Andorian security guard, and I just like made my own comics, my own Star Trek comics when I was like in junior high and high school. But I never showed them to anyone because like Star Trek wasn't cool, and so like you know whatever. But like I was like all my friends they were into comics, or some of them were, but it was like if I mentioned Star Trek, they'd like be trashing me, and I'm like. Whatever, dude. It's awesome. Like it's been my favorite thing for literally as long as I can remember. So they were wrong,
They
and
were wrong. Hey,
yeah,
tell them, hey, I'm making a living at it now, so yeah,
right, yeah,
yeah,
same,
it pays the
yeah,
bills. Um,
yeah.
so
I get
that's
to draw.
actually that's something I was sitting here thinking about when we were talking about comics. I wonder, and there's always been some negativity and discussion about whether or not, and I already mentioned it earlier, but like the Big Bang Theory. And I really wonder how much that show actually helped to bring comic books and sci-fi into the mainstream and to make it to where it's you know so what if you do it you are the nerds or whatnot, but again you're not, and they just I mean when you had those four guys doing that all the time, going to the comic book store, and everybody, and you're talking about the number one show that was on for 12 years, that had to make a huge impact on the comic book industry and just in general.
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely like popularized it. Absolutely. Um, I don't know if it uh, impacted it like financially. Like I don't know if it got those people going into shops and buying stuff, but that you definitely seen people wearing like Spider-Man shirts and stuff like that, or Flash shirts and all. So if you're a shirt, you know, merchandiser, salesman, designer, creator, printer, entrepreneur person, then yeah, you're probably doing all right. Um,
Yeah, I wonder how many Bazinga shirts were made.
right. Yeah.
But no, I do think it helped. I really do feel it probably helped the industry. Like you said, maybe not financially, but it's or the shop owners, but it definitely I suspect it really did bring you know it out into the light for people to see. Hey, this is cool to do.
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
definitely.
And I also think it did the same thing, even though I know it's been around for a long time. Um, like Dungeons and Dragons, it put it in more. You know, it always used to be something that would be, back, your closed door. It wasn't the cool thing to do. And now you have people like Todd Stashwick and sitting there running D&D games online at conventions,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
amount of
It was like what him, Michelle Hurd, Bonnie Gordon, who else?
uh,
Ciroc,
I
right?
think Sirach, I think Elias might have been in it too. I,
Yeah, a lot
I think
there. Yeah,
Elias was there as well. I didn't make it to I don't know. I was doing something else. I might have been in another meeting or something while I was up there, but I know they did that, and it's such a hit at the conventions.
yeah. I went in for part of it because like I'm not much of a gamer. And by not much, I'm not at all. I've never played. Like my daughter got into D&D recently, so she would know more about it. But I was like, yeah, I'll go and just like watch them hang out. And like a lot of it was like really really inside stuff. So I'm like, I don't get it, but I'm glad everyone's having fun.
Yeah, I would have known. I would have not known anything they were talking about, like D20s and okay. I'm like, okay. Well, I'm glad y'all are having fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool to like hang out with them, like because they were like everybody there was just amazing. Like that show that was like the best show I've ever been to. You know that.
I love that convention, and I'll probably give a little more of my insights later on it. But so I was going to ask you, what was it like when you learned you'd been chosen to do Star Trek issue 500? That had to be a pretty.
Oh man,
I didn't
yeah,
even have to finish my question.
no, yeah. Uh, so it was several months like to really get there, like probably about like 6 months or so, and I'd met the editor at because I'm from New Orleans, and I met the editor Heather Antos at Fan Expo in January last year, so about a year ago. And I showed her some of my work, but like it wasn't just showing like regular comic pages because I was like, I'm sure she's seen a bunch of those. But uh, I'd drawn like a picture of her like in the next gen uniform, like on the Enterprise D bridge. Got to talking with her, and I also had like my iPad, which the screen the lock screen was the Turtles cover that I did for the Halloween issue. So she's like, "Oh yeah, I saw that. I really liked it." And so just kind of got in like that, and then I just kept up with her. I'd message her like every month or two, send some pages and stuff, and she was like, yeah, I've got something in mind. Just hang tight. And I'm like, okay, and I'm like going back and forth, and I'd gotten this shirt for Christmas, but I hadn't worn it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna wear it once, like if I get hired. And then she just like emailed me and was like, hey, I'd like to offer you a Strange New World story in issue 500, and like, yeah, it just completely blew my mind. Like I threw the shirt on immediately, and I'm going all sorts of places and like telling people I'm like, oh, it's my work shirt now, and uh, and yeah, because it was like it's a monumental issue, and it's Strange New Worlds, which is like one of my favorite shows, and also like a show that was current. So yeah, it was just like because like I'd met Ethan Peck like a year before at the Fan Expo show here, and he was super cool. And yeah, and I'd like posted some stuff online, like just kind of Star Trek art that I'd done. Like one was an Ortega's piece, and like Melissa Navia reposted it. Like it was on Twitter, and she like retweeted it, and then like Anson Mount comments on it. Dan Janot, Sam Kirk comments on it. Bruce Horak, Hammer comments on it. Like, and like it blew up, and I did one of like Ahura, and like Celia Rose Gooding commented on it, and I was like, and now I'm actually getting to draw, you know, their show and their characters, it just completely blew my mind. It's,
That well, congratulations on that. That is
like,
just phenomenal. And I can tell you, not quite anything like that, but like it was about 2 weekends ago or 2 weeks ago, I had made a post on X and Instagram, and also I think BlueSky. But I think and I said it was when Doug Jones was on the Decon Chamber, and I said, "Hey, go watch this. New episode release. It's just especially promoing the show. Talking it up that episode." And that was on the show was on Sunday. I did that post late Sunday evening, um, and I came home for lunch on Monday. That Monday, and I'm sitting here eating my lunch, and ding on my phone. Hear my phone go off, and I look down. It says actor Doug Jones has liked your post, and then another ding, he reposted it.
dude, that is like,
I was like, uh, what?
when I've had that happen, like I screenshot. I'm like,
I probably
it's
should have done that because
yeah.
today a same thing happened, but with Brian Fuller's episode.
Oh
He
wow,
he re.
I,
I was like, okay, either I'm doing something really right, or I better start checking for the sky. The sky's gonna fall or something, because when it's just so weird when you see those things happen, and we're to just the fans like us.
it means so much. Like, and that's when I met Melissa Navi at the Dallas show. I told her that I was like, you retweeting that and like and she'll usually other things that I've done that I've tagged her in, like that I've, because like I actually drew her into the background on one of the panels in Star Trek 500, and it was like her and Uhura like in the port galley like talking, and she would like share that on her stories, and so like when I met her, because it was like, yeah, the thing that she retweeted that first time, I got her to sign it, and I was like, you when you guys like do that, it means so much to us, and it's it's just a flick of a keyboard for y'all, but it really impacts us like so much. Like it's just so cool, and yeah, and everyone at the Dallas show was just so amazing. Like everyone, to all the fans were just, and yeah, like Stashwick. I was talking to him, and I was like, yeah, this is my first time set up. Like I usually do regular comic conventions, but this is my first time doing a Star Trek one. So it's like, yeah, maybe I should go there and see how it is. And he just looks at me and he's like, you're in. Welcome to the family. And I'm like, like it was like just that one sentence. It's so impactful because it's like, these are people that like we look up to and watching these shows that like we, I know me, and I've heard the story of a lot of people doing it too. It's like we kind of model our behavior on like the world that and the type of people that we want it to be, and for them to live up to that and to be cool and not just be some jerky actor.
Oh, I know, and
It's
it's
amazing.
amazing, and that's what I loved about the one we went to. Um, live and learn, but at least I remember it. I
Right,
do
that's what I,
remember that,
yeah,
and
you
so
got
I've got the
that.
memory.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's I met Shatner at a car show when I was like 10, and he wasn't signing autographs though. Like you could take pictures with him, and my mom was like, "Oh, I should have brought a camera," but we didn't. And so he had like just photocopied pictures, of like half the page was him in an Admiral Kirk uniform, the other half was him in a TJ Hooker uniform, and I was just like, I look at him, I smile, I'm like, "Can you sign this?" And he smiles and looks down at me, and he goes, "No." And that story's kind of better than the actual autograph,
it is, it is. That is a great story. So what brought this up was I remember standing in line, and the convention employees were bringing a captain's chair from TOS on a dolly through to his area to the booth. And I'm just like, is he going to sit in that and sign? You know, I had no idea. No, someone had an actual captain's chair replica and paid for him to sign it.
Oh wow, that's
I was like, holy crap.
yeah.
And he just went over there and signed it and went about his business. So that was cool. That
See, if
was,
I get him to sign something, I'd have to find or just make that picture that I saw when I was a kid, where it's just the black and white 8.5 by 11, half of him in movie Kirk uniform, half of him as TJ Hooker, and just be like, now,
yeah, exactly. How much here? Take the paper money or credit?
yeah.
Either one. What do you want? I'll give it to you. Oh my, that's too
But he's
funny.
this year.
He what?
He's going to be at Vegas this
I
year.
saw that.
Creation show.
I
Yeah.
saw that. And speaking of creation, I've been wondering about this. The drawing you made for the Dallas show, did they ask you to do that, or did you just do it on your own and they saw it and were like, "Yeah, we want to use that"?
It was a little bit of both. Like I'd talked with them about like, being at the show and all this stuff, and was like, hey, I'd be happy to do any art for you. And they're like, yeah, yeah, that'd be cool. And then like I told them the idea, and they were like, oh yeah, that sounds like really cool. Like just doing all the guests as their characters in the Deep Space Nine promenade. And yeah, like they were just like really loving it, and then like even when I went there, uh, I met Anne Marie who works for Creation, and she was like, yeah, they were showing this like before the show and all this, and then like I found a video on YouTube that they posted months ago, but I just found it like last week. And I was like, oh my God. And they're like talking about it. It was like her and Ryan and a couple other people with Creation. And and I know that like they printed up some big ones and got like everyone to sign them, and then like auctioned it off for the show. So yeah, that was super cool. And I believe I'm going to be doing it again for Vegas. Um, I've heard back some about being in Vegas, and then they were like, hey, follow up after San Francisco. So, San Francisco was just like a week or so ago. So, yeah, and so that one, my idea is to do like three different posters, since it's like, it's going to be like 100 something. Yes, if it's like last year they had like 110, 120 like of actors of all the various series. So I was like, okay, if I fit 30 into one, I'd probably need like three to
Mhm.
fit like.
Yeah, because you'd be at
But
90 right there. So,
yeah,
wow.
um,
Had SpaceCon in October, and then a literally like 36, not even 48 hours, but a 36-hour trip out to Los Angeles to go and watch and to attend the Bill Mummy recording for the Decon Chamber.
oh wow,
Oh, that was cool. That was so freaking cool to be able to go out there. But I,
so you
I,
were like in there with like Dominic and Connor, and wow, those guys are so cool too. Like I know I keep just saying like everybody's so cool and awesome, but yeah, they were amazing, and I'd met them. The Dallas show was like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and on Thursday, we set up like in the vendors room, and I got there like setup started at like 3:30 or something. I dropped off my daughter for school here at like 7:30 in the morning, hit the road, and just like drove to Dallas, got there at like 3:30, 4 o'clock, started setting up, got everything, did a podcast up in my hotel room, like went up to the hotel room to do like a podcast for an hour, came back down, and they opened up the floor that night for like an hour or so for like VIP ticket holders. And then as I'm leaving and I'm bringing stuff that I didn't want to leave on my table back up to my hotel room. I pass the bar and I see Dominic and Connor there and a couple other people. And I was like, all right. And I mean, like, doing comics and doing conventions and stuff, like I've met like, like no, I'm not being some kind of Hollywood hobnob or anything, but it's like I've met people, and it's like, all right, cool, yeah, and also, I used to like bartend and stuff, and so it's like I have no problem talking with people and like strangers. I mean, I didn't know you before the show, and like, but I go there and I'm sitting there, and they're like right next to me. It's like the two of them. Uh, um, this girl Kara, who was like one of their handlers, and then other guy Michael, who was just like a fan, who was there like as a fan of the show. And but I didn't know who the other two people were at first, and I'm sitting like literally right next to them, and I'm like, but I'm starstruck. I'm like, what do I do? How do I do this? And I'm just like, what's wrong with you? You know how to talk to people. You always do this. Like, I've been plenty of places where I didn't know anyone, and by the end of the night, I know everybody. Like, it's not. But and so I'm sitting there. I'm like drinking a whiskey and coke, and after like about the second or third one, the guy Michael, because yeah, I met him at the show later on too. He gets up and leaves, and I was like, all right, screw it, I'm going in. And I get up, I turn, and I'm like, hey, y'all mind if I take his place? And Dominic's like, yeah, come on in. And so like I get there, and I just hang out with them for the rest of the night. And so like the next morning, I'm going in the show, and their tables were like across from mine and about 20 feet
Yep,
down.
they were right
So
at the entrance.
yeah. And I walk past, and Dominic's at his table, and he's like, Vernon. And I'm like, Dominic Keating knows my name.
This is kind of a more of a Star Trek themed podcast. I might need to
Oh
actually finally ask you about, which we've been talking about Star Trek. Don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but some people, and I agree, will want to know, like what drew you to Star Trek.
Oh, so pretty much as long as I can remember, I've been a fan. Like even when I was like a little toddler, like I have memories from like kindergarten having motion picture figures. But I remember seeing Wrath of Khan like in the theater in like first grade or something, and coming home and just playing Star Trek in my yard, like with my GI Joe figures, and then like as I got older, because there weren't like a lot of Star Trek toys really back then, like mid '80s, and before Next Gen came out. So like I would take like my GI Joes, and sometimes I'd like paint them in like Star Trek type uniforms, and I turn like the Millennium Falcon into like the Enterprise, and so like they go on all these adventures and stuff. And yeah, like I saw all but like one movie. It was like one of the last Next Gen movies I missed in the theater, but every other one like I saw in the theater. I remember like when Next Gen premiered on TV, like my whole family sat around and watched it. Like we were, it's just always been a part of my life, and I think what kept me in it was just sort of some of the stuff that we touched on earlier was like just that kind of optimism and positive view of the future and of humanity, of like it's like you watch it and it's like this is this is what we should be, and hopefully this is what we could be, like people putting aside the differences that are tearing each other apart right now, like and days that are kind of around the World War III days of the Star Trek universe, and it's like
Yeah.
are we
Well, and exactly. So now I got you in. So, what really do you have a favorite character of all the series, movies?
so I think I'm gonna go with my easy answer, Spock. He's, which I guess of my top three, they'd kind of be like similar, but Spock just because of his impact on the entire Star Trek universe, like spanning centuries and even universes. Like aside from the Prime one, I mean the Mirror universe has influenced the Kelvin universe has influenced. Like he's just he is like the series as a whole wouldn't be the same if you removed any character, but if you remove Spock from the Star Trek universe, it would be gutted.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say that you really could, you could almost not have, you could remove almost even Kirk, honestly, within reason. You could, because if you think, he was the second one, he was the second captain. I think even if you had, if they had not stuck, if they had not stayed, if they'd gone, not stayed with him, I still think you're right. If the series would have not been what it is without, Spock was that central character. And that's also why when they did the Wrath of Khan and he wanted, and Leonard Nimoy wanted out of the series and basically asked to be killed. And then when the fan and then he realized what had happened and the amount, how much the fans like just were like, no, no. And that, I think that's when he realized, okay, I have to come back. Oh, he realized he has to come back. He just, and so, oh God, I don't think I got. I don't. I've been trying to remember what Star Trek movies I saw in the theater, and I can, for whatever reason, I can only remember maybe Star Trek 5 and 6 for sure, um, and maybe 4. I just because I was I was 11 when TNG came out in '87. So I wish I could remember how many of the movies I actually saw in the theater. Now, obviously, I saw all the TNG movies in the theater, and everything from 6 on, I know for a fact I saw those. Um,
Yeah, five. I remember seeing in the theater. I'm like a year or two older, and I remember like I was catching a bus home from summer school because I'd failed science, and they were showing it in the theater downtown New Orleans. And I'd picked up a National Enquirer a week before because they were like, "We have the inside scoop on the script for Star Trek Five," and for people that don't remember, the National Enquirer was like this tabloid magazine, always talking about aliens and Elvis sighting, and Hitler was still alive in Peru or something, and so like you didn't believe any of it, and I'm reading the story in there, and it's like, what, Spock's got a brother and they go and see God? No, absolutely not. And then I walk out of the theater and I was like, they nailed it. Like it was like the Men in Black moment, where it's like, yes, all the truth is in those magazines. Like they actually like told the whole story of Star Trek Five, and I was like, it blew my mind.
mhm. I still like the line, "What's God need
But
with a starship?"
absolutely, no, a
Again,
lot of that movie, but it does have some really great parts to it. I mean that's a great part. The part when Kirk refuses Cybok's mind meld, I need my pain.
yeah,
Like,
and you're right. It has its moments. Again, it's still not my favorite movie.
yeah,
It's just not my favorite, but
and it's got Jerry Smith doing the soundtrack again. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you can't beat it. You can't. Um,
I call marshmallows marshmallows now because of that movie.
that's so funny. So what is your? I have a suspicion your answer is going to be TOS, but which is your favorite series?
I'm gonna go TAS then, just to throw everybody and pick the anime.
Oh,
Um, but
oh,
I go
tricky.
I think, I mean, it really does fluctuate between when you ask, like what time of day and whatever. Because I do have like several, like I love the original series movies, like I love the uniforms and the ships and that. But I also like Voyager. I like that might be my favorite because I love. I mean, Janeway's a badass. Like she is just
Oh,
amazing.
she is.
Seven,
She kicked ass.
yeah, seven. Like when she came in, just just her story. Like because she's kind of like the Data or Spock character, like someone like struggling with their humanity and like having like a really messed up backstory like that, and then her relationship like with the doctor, like and doctor, I mean, another struggling entity character, like that's, and like the fact that when that show came out, all the other Star Trek before it was really safe. Like the it was like the Federation was just like, yeah, we're here, we're kind of running things, everything's cool, there's no threat to us. DS9, yeah, it got threatened a bit, uh, but it was still like, yeah, but they still had all of their allies with them. But Voyager was just, they were going where no one had gone before. They were on their own. It was like Wild West Star Trek. It was like Enterprise, but in the 24th century, basically. Um, and that's what I love about Enterprise was it's like, yeah, we know things as the audience, but it's like they they don't know anything that's going. Like Trip, you know, yelling at the mom for weaning her kid off of oxygen and stuff. And Paul's like, quit being so human, and realize there's other species out here. And
So it's gonna be a last question for now because we're getting close to running out of time here, and it's the fun
all
one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with that the Dallas show, I was talking Star Trek for like 4 or 5 days, and it never, like
I know, I could do it too, but the viewers might be like, "This is a 4 hour video,"
all right. Yeah, this is a
but
Joe
yeah.
Star Trek show.
But I was gonna ask you, what Trek technology do you wish existed today?
Ooh. So I guess if I'm going to stick to my I want Star Trek to be real, I'll go replicators so that could end, world hunger and all that stuff. Personal fun way though, I would go holodeck because I think that would just be insanely cool to just do whatever you want and like have, yeah, like even if it's just on a minor level of like someone cuts you off and then you program them into the holodeck and punch them in the face.
That's
um,
awesome. That's so
but
funny.
yeah,
I have not put
or
holodeck on my list.
it could be useful for like if you're going on a job interview or asking someone out on a date, you could like prep, like get past your own stumbling nervousness and you know work it. You could say yes when you're a little kid and want an autograph from him. You could possibilities, but yeah, I'd probably go replicator just to like really make the world
Hmm.
better,
Yeah,
or if not, a starship so I could get the hell away from here.
true.
And this is one thing I forgot to say to Christina Chong, like, because I got her to sign the first Star Trek page that I drew, like the original page. Uh, Kept it, and there's like a big full body shot of her, and so like I got her to sign it, and I forgot to tell her that like when I started drawing the page, I put on the Subspace Rhapsody album. Like I bought the record like whenever I was going to be working on this, and I put it on. And right as I started drawing her, her song came on, and I was like, this is how it's meant to be, you know.
I may have to make just a short little clip of this and somehow figure out how to send it to her and get it straight to her. Well, Vernon, thank you for doing this. I had a great time talking to you tonight. It was so much fun, and just getting to learn what you do and how you do your drawings. And I hope I get to meet you. I will meet you again. It's just a matter of when and where. And if it's not Vegas, maybe we can convince them to bring you up to Chicago this year. And you're just going to have to you're just going to be a staple now at all the creation events, like Bonnie.
I would totally do that. I would absolutely, like that. That's something I was even like, I was like, how can I get it to where like I'm there for every show? Cause yeah, like I had a blast, like, and even just like business wise, like I sold a lot of stuff. Like I did really well at the show. Like I was very happy with it. You know, hopefully that continues.
Yeah.
But yeah, but a lot of that I'd even forget about. Like I'd just be like talking Star Trek with somebody for like 20-30 minutes at my table, and then they're like, so you drew this? And I'm like, oh yeah. So if you want to buy like some comics or post,
I know, I did.
Just
I would.
like, so,
Yeah, I'd walk by your table, and you usually had people there, and y'all were just talking. But that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, anyway, we could keep on going. I gotta make myself stop. Stop. So anyway, it was fun, and I will talk to you later. You have a great evening, sir.
Yeah. You too. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.